This virus that we've all seen is changing many ways that the world is run. We've seen a drive towards the internet. We've seen people starting to work from home instead of going to offices. But one of the major changes that we're seeing when it comes to the economy is the rise of China. China will overtake the US to become the world's largest economy by 2028, 5 years earlier than previously forecast, a report says. The UK-based Centre for Economics and Business Research said China's skillful management of the virus would boost its relative growth compared to the US and Europe in coming years. If we look at the forecast, China is expected to have average economic growth of 5.7% a year from 2021 to 2025 before slowing to 4.5% a year from 2026 to 2030. The United States, however, has forecasted growth of 1.9% a year between 2022 and 2024, and then to 1.6% after that. So the USA is growing at 2 to 3 times less than China's growth. With this expected growth, China will overtake the USA and become the largest economy in the world within the next decade. Now, this is interesting because the virus, the pandemic, the global shutdown has benefited China a lot more than its Western counterparts. So I want to talk why. I want to go deeper into the trends and discuss why it's so important that the USA gets its act together, or else the whole world could suffer. So let's start by looking at this. This graph measures GDP, gross domestic product. This is the main way you measure how strong an economy is because it shows you how much they produce in a given year. So if we take a look, in 1990, it wasn't even close between the USA and China. The USA were producing more than 10 times the amount of goods. 5.9 trillion compared to 398 billion. 2000, it was around the same story, 10.2 trillion compared to 1.2. But then the 21st century rolls along, and that's when China starts to adopt capitalism more and becomes a threat to the USA. Just over that next decade, they rose from being 1/10 of the size to almost half of the USA's economy. In 2010, the USA had $15 trillion of GDP compared to China's $6 trillion. Now, fast forward to today, what's the most recent trend that you can see? China has had another uptick in terms of growth, at least when compared to the USA. Over the next couple of years, that growth is meant to continue for China, and those lines are meant to meet in 2028. That's not too far away. That is when China is meant to take the flagpole from the USA and become the world's leading economy. Now, this is interesting because the pandemic has really benefited China the most. While the USA was battling case after case, China locked things down. They smothered the virus and were able to open up their economy relatively quickly. The USA, their lockdown didn't work as well as China, and they have taken a lot longer to start opening businesses and heating up the economy again. So this race between China and the USA to be the dominant economic superpower, China have thrown a couple of touchdowns during this pandemic, and they're catching up on the scorecard. Over the next decade, at least when you look at what the economists are saying, they will take the baton from the USA. But let's continue to look at the other factors that help make up an economy. We'll compare these two countries. If we look at the land area, they're pretty much the same. China has 9,338 kilometers squared, whereas the USA has 9,147. But then, this is the important one, population. China has 1.4 billion people, the USA 330 million. So China has more than 4 times the amount of people to work in their businesses, build their infrastructure, farm their lands, and grow their economy. This is one of the key reasons why they're catching up so quickly. They just have more manpower. It's why Elon Musk says, if you have half the resources of the counterparty, that's actually less than half, then you better be real innovative. If you're not innovative, you're gonna lose. It would only require getting to a GDP per capita half the size of the United States for their economy to be twice the size of ours. And that's because China has 4 times the amount of people in it. But China, they also have more reserves than the USA, 3.9 trillion compared to 434 billion. Now, USA's policy is spend, spend, spend. China's is more save, invest, save. They also have more foreign direct investments. I'm sure you guys living around the world will see this. They're buying up as much property and infrastructure as possible to grow and expand. You see this in Africa. You see this in China's surrounding nations. You even see this in the USA, where the Chinese pay good money for USA's real estate. I'm not going to say this twice, but the Chinese are on the ball when it comes to business and economics. But that's not to say that the USA do not have things going for them. They certainly do. I'm not going to be one of those people that just try to sell you one narrative to try get YouTube views. I'd rather get less views and give you the full picture. The USA, arguably the main thing that they have going for them is their relationships with other countries. Countries such as Canada, the UK, Australia, Germany. They're all on the USA's side, at least compared to China. We saw this recently with 5G. China, we know how they are. They're so onto it, they tried to expand their 5G network across the globe. They went to the UK and said, "Can we build here?" The UK said, "You've used this type of technology for immoral purposes in the past. You can't place your 5G in our country, mate." Australia, they said the same thing. "We don't want your 5G. We'd rather have the USA's because we trust them more." So this relationship between the USA and other countries is going to help them with their economy. Now, it may not mean that they maintain their economic leader status, but hopefully it will mean that they maintain their global superpower status. I don't know about your opinion, but I'd much rather have the USA at the head of the table compared to China. China, they don't exactly have the best reputation when it comes to power and handling it in a moral way. For example, when it comes to the internet, they developed sophisticated censorship systems to monitor and suppress public criticism. Now, you can do most things on the internet there, but don't criticize the government, don't have certain religious beliefs, don't condemn what they're doing to Hong Kong. They really do want their citizens to stay in their lane, and they're not afraid to use their power to get them to do so. The problem, if they become the economic superpower of the world, is they would have more influence to do this to more and more people. And I'm sure that both you and I can agree that this is not a good thing. You know, there's no doubt that the USA has its faults, but the fact that they represent democracy, freedom of speech, and power to the people is a good thing. At least that's what I think. Feel free to let me know your opinion in the comments below. I'll have a read over them. But that's why I don't mind the trade war between the USA and China, because clearly over the past couple of decades, as we've just seen, China has been catching up, and they've used American technology and trade to help their growth. One thing that they were doing was allowing American companies to come into their country, but then forcing them to hand over their intellectual property and technology. Then they would use this technology for their own good. America did not do the same to the Chinese companies that operated there. So there was some amount of unfairness going on. Although the trade war has hurt both countries' economies, and you can argue if it was worthwhile or not, at the very least, it has ensured China cannot steal American intellectual property. So that's going to be the battle that is going on over the next decade. Who can become or maintain that #1 spot of the world's largest economy? This is important because if you have the biggest economy, it trickles down to so much more. You have more money to invest in artificial intelligence. Obviously, we need that to be done ethically. You have more money to spread your political beliefs and influence. And you have more money to build your military. And at the moment, America does have by far the biggest one. Let's just hope that nothing happens in that particular sector. I quite enjoy my life, to be honest. So this clash between the USA and China is not just a clash to see who can generate more business and build the biggest buildings. At the end of the day, it's a battle for power and influence. China does statistically have the ball in their court when it comes to how much they are growing by, but the USA has something very important, and that's the backing of the rest of the world. This is why it's so important that the US can sort out their politics, sort out their economy, because it's going to be vital in how the world is run in the future.